that goes with those emails. Today we have our professional spotlight, and Denise will actually introduce our guest speaker today. But since I haven't had a chance to meet with students, this is kind of like the first meeting where I'm able to welcome students. I just want to, like I said, take a second to welcome you guys. Thank you guys for joining us today. Thank you for joining RAM. And just remind you that, there are faces behind these emails. So you see Dustin Johnson on your screen. There you go. He's one of the RAMP advisors. And I said, I'm Laura Ayon. And then we have Denise Cedillos, another one of our advisors. So, we're your go-to. Whatever you guys need. We don't always have the answers, but we're lucky to have a team, not just within RAMP, but our extended Office of Student Success team that will try to help you however we can. We have a bunch of our tutors here. Most of them are here as well. So I'm just going to quickly say their names, and maybe you can find them on your screen. You got Caitlin Porter, Trey Wynn, Anastasia Ornelas, Jane Rumpack, Jessica Ramirez, Karen Segura. I saw somebody else like that, Winnie Rebecca, and Abby Ibarra. And Daniel Chow, there you are. The squares keep moving on me. This is definitely a new format for all of us. We miss interacting with students. That is what we do. That has been our life. Even, for some of us who had jobs prior to RAMP, this has been very difficult, but we appreciate that students are just kind of going through it day by day, accepting the challenges. And we're hoping to not just accept the challenges, but, optimize our opportunities. So, in some way, there are things that we can do that we couldn't do in person. So tomorrow we'll be having a mixer, and if you join our mixer, you'll be able to hear a little more about the tutors. I don't want to take all of Jennifer's time, with that, even though I'm so excited to finally be in the company of students. So again, welcome. And if you have any needs or questions, please reach out to us.
Like Laura mentioned, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you here at our Professional Spotlight in a new format, but it also allows us to connect with people that might be out of state, might be out of the city, and then record this for people who may not be able to join us today. And I have the pleasure of introducing our guest speaker, Jennifer Vrenez. She is a licensed clinical social worker and a therapist. Jennifer holds a master's degree in social work from San Diego State University and a bachelor's in sociology from UC Santa Barbara. She has worked in the juvenile justice system along with other areas in social services, including workforce development. Jennifer is particularly interested in advocating for policy reform. During her time in undergrad, Jennifer participated in the study abroad program, which sparked a lifelong quest for knowledge and experience through travel. So learning outside of the classroom. She traveled to 30 countries before she was 30 years old, and she plans to continue these adventures once it's safe to do so post-pandemic. She is a first-generation college graduate, so much like many of us, much like Laura and Dustin and I, first generation in her family to go to college, and she's a daughter of Salvadorian immigrants. If you have any questions, we will have a Q&A after the presentation, so you can save your questions until then. You can raise your hand using the feature on Zoom, or you can use a chat feature to ask questions. So without further ado, please help me in welcoming our professional spotlight, Jennifer
Vrenez. Well, hello everyone. Hi, Denise and Ramp, just thank you guys. Thank you everyone for this opportunity. I feel very privileged and honored to have been asked to participate in this. So I look forward to hearing from the students at the end, and please feel free to ask any questions. I'm so open to that. So thank you. So I guess I'll just start with an overview as to who I am, and then I'll go into like my history and then college and then traveling, my profession, and things like that. So as Denise mentioned, so I am a first generation Salvadoran American Latina. I am currently working as a therapist at a boys group home, working with young kids that have just exited the juvenile justice, like juvenile hall, and are now here in preparation to go home with their families. And so I guess I'll just start like where I grew up and my background. So yeah, my parents uprooted in Southern California in the 1980s after fleeing the civil war that happened in San Salvador during that time. I think just that history, I didn't really know much about our history growing up. I think a lot what happens to a lot of, at least the Salvadoran diaspora that is found here outside of El Salvador, we kind of grow up in like this culture of silence due to the trauma that many of our parents experienced in like during the Civil War. And so I think that pursuit of knowledge and me trying to discover like more about my history and my roots really led me to the activities that I involved myself in college. But I did grow up here in Southern California in Tustin, California, not Tucson, but Tustin. A lot of you guys might have heard of just Tustin Jewelers. So it's like in Orange County, and so that was I grew up in a pretty diverse community. So it helped open my eyes to different cultures and different people, and so that was cool. But again, it like kind of drew away from my own history as well. And so then I went on to, I think even in high school, I was editor-in-chief of my school newspaper, and I was always interested in like injustice. I didn't quite understand like racial inequality really, or didn't understand the concept, but I knew that there were things that were not right. Like I remember when writing a piece on Arnold Schwarzenegger and how he didn't want to give us like licenses like to Latinos and immigrants. And so I always had that like mind of like questioning, right? Because it's important to question all things and really, and just ask questions, period, to seek clarification and really understand everything. So then going on to college, I remember taking a course on critical race theory, and that really opened my mind to kind of the realities that we were experiencing here that maybe we noticed, but we didn't really understand. And so that then became my, and I actually switched. I used to be a communications major because I was really interested in going into journalism and writing. But after taking that course, I actually decided to change my major to sociology and Latin and Iberian studies. So I double majored. And there in college was, I also found an organization, the Salvadoran student-led organization, which really opened my eyes and really helped me discover like where I came from, and really I understood that yes, I was born here, but my roots are also in El Salvador, and I was able to go on a delegation with a group of college students to El Salvador in February 2009, I believe, and like going there, even though I had been there before, just like learning, it was very focused on learning our history, on learning the culture, on learning the social economic situation in the country. And so at that point, I learned that I not only wanted to help in like the US and try to like help people like have equal access to resources, but also in El Salvador somehow. So so that's where I think my desire and my drive to really also have some type of influence in El Salvador arose. And then coming back from that, I also the traveling aspect. So in college, I also had the opportunity to go on I first traveled abroad to Brazil, and I did a program there. And then my last year, I did a program called Semester at Sea. It was through the University of Virginia, and through that program, I was able to go to 5 continents and 11 countries. So we literally went around the world on a boat. which was a very interesting experience, which also opened my eyes to the type of like social work that was going on around the world. Um, I was able to visit orphanages. I was able to visit like different, like agriculturally sustainable like environments and places. And so it really opened my eyes to social work. And I think that is also what led to me pursuing a master's in social work. Already like having this sense of, okay, there is a great disparity in this country, right? When it comes to like um, racial equality, and with that, like economic equality, and um, just equal access to education or opportunities to different resources when it comes to education. And so I knew that I wanted to work in trying to uh, like lessen the gap between those disparities among people. And so yeah, I went into social work, and I originally wanted to go into community development because that's where I was at before. Like in college, I did community organizing on campus. um, where it came like I was also, yeah, on campus, and then also in the Salvadoran community. I was also like helping like in different campaigns for the TPS campaign, temporary status campaign, and just different work with the Salvadoran community as well as with students on campus in Santa Barbara. And so I knew that I wanted to continue that work once I left college. And so I went to San Diego State, and I pursued my master's in social work with an emphasis in administration and community development. But I also got a stipend for a mental health stipend. So through that seminar, I was able to learn much more in terms of like how these disparities really do affect one's mental health, and and how it like really exacerbates like there's stressors, right, that everyone experiences stress. But how does environmental stress, whether it's because you don't have social resources, economic resources, or you don't have any of that capital, how does that contribute to one's detriment in their mental health? And so I became very interested in that. I also interned when I was in San Diego at a juvenile justice, like at a police department in San Diego, Southeast San Diego specifically. And so I would see that a lot of these kids that were part of this juvenile diversion program were Latinos and African Americans, and also that had to do with where the police department was located. And so I knew that there was a lot of injustice in the judicial system, and I was able to see that firsthand, or just like common myths in regards to like certain populations and their involvement in the juvenile justice system. And 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 so yeah, like that really, I became really interested in the juvenile justice system. And so I really enjoyed my experience with that internship. And then once I graduated, I started actually doing therapy. I've worked in like ER type of settings, doing evaluations, and then I went on to do family therapy specifically for youth that had just had their first psychotic break. And I worked with family. The majority of the work was with the family. And then I went on to work in juvenile hall. So I was working in juvenile hall in East LA. So that was definitely, it was a beautiful challenge. It was really humbling experience. I feel like I learned a lot from the kids as well. I learned about their experiences, and just everything that, and I started to see also common trends as to like what's kind of facilitated this process of them engaging in the juvenile justice system. And like my goal and my desire is to help these kids really like inspire them, right, to see something outside of their environment, to inspire them to um, want more, and it's okay to want more. you know, a lot of these kids are also like affiliated with gangs or in gangs. And so also helping them wherever I can to help them see like their history and how that's kind of facilitated that as well. And so try to bring understanding to what's going on with them and also helping them with their mental health needs. And so I'm currently licensed. I became licensed a couple years ago. So I'm a clinical licensed social worker. And actually took after I became licensed, so after doing some work in juvenile hall and also in the community with mental health, I decided to take a 6-month break, and I went and I studied abroad again. I went to Portugal, and I studied Portuguese, and then I also traveled to Europe, well, Portugal, Spain, and Germany and France. And then I ended up going to El Salvador. And there I was, you know, I have family over there. And so I was able to do some community work there as well. And so I'm a big traveler, as Denise said. And fortunately, thankfully, I'm really grateful that I've had the opportunity to travel as much as I have. um, I feel like it's so important, especially if you're, of course, with the whole COVID-19, maybe that's not as possible or feasible in this moment, but I really do advocate for like students or people that I've mentored to like really give yourself that opportunity to travel, give yourself that opportunity to go to different places and learn about that culture, really integrate yourself in those places and learn how things are. And you're going to see that we have a lot of similarities. We have a lot of similarities. A lot of people, no matter where they're at, they go through very similar situations and they experience similar social and economic and political um, experiences. So that's been, I think, one of that's my experiences abroad have been so enriching and have really, I feel like if I never traveled, I'd definitely be in like a bubble. Like I wouldn't have different ideas or different I'd have a different worldview basically. And so so I'm really grateful for the traveling opportunities that I've had. I really advocate for studying, like if you're in college right now, to take an opportunity and like go study somewhere else. And if you're already outside of college, like definitely it's definitely possible to make that time, to save that money, to be able to travel and have those experiences. I remember when I was on the ship, so it was obviously a majority, like everybody, we're students, we were taking classes on a ship, but there were also a lot of people called lifelong learners. So these were people that were retired or people that just wanted to continue learning or had taken a break off and just wanted to continue learning. So there were a lot of these people on this trip, and I was able to like interact with them. And so I mean, we are lifelong learners. We're never going to stop learning. And so traveling is one of those opportunities to do so. And so I really recommend it. I have been able now. I'm like, I think I've been to 32 countries since I reached my 30 in 2018. And yeah, I hope to continue traveling. I hope to continue traveling and experiencing new cultures and really opening my mind and expanding my mind to different things. Um, and so that was about traveling. I guess I can talk a little bit more about let's see, about my work, about maybe what it takes to like how to like social work and just like the different. So social work is very, very broad. I think a lot of people, when they think about social work, they think about, oh, these are the people that take kids away or like go and snatch your kids, right? But it really is so much more than that. Social work is so broad. You can go into policy, you can go into direct practice, which is therapy. You can go into research, you can go into program development, you can go into admin, you can work with the government, you can work with the state, you can work in the prison, you can work in the school as a school social worker. there's so many things that you can do with social work. It's so broad. And so, for example, for myself, like I am doing the direct practice route right now. I could potentially, since I'm licensed, I could open up my own private practice. So that's something I could do. Private practice meaning I would have my own clientele. I'd be doing therapy with them, have my own office. But I'm interested in policy work. I do want to work on definitely developing a policy that really speaks to that really speaks to the injustice that a lot of people face. I do want to focus on let's see, and like developing opportunities for a lot of people, for youth specifically. I think that, you know, like I know right now juvenile justice is going through a huge reform, and I'm glad as to where it's going and the direction it's taking. Like, I do believe it's important to develop more maybe community centers for youth, to have like more rehab related services. Also, uh, centers that could help them like develop interests or develop their talents or their interests or their strengths, right? Because everyone has strengths. So I'm really interested in working towards policy that can help youth, like uh, not because right now I think what's happening is that what's happening is that these kids are either going to jail or they're being kind of what's the word? I'm missing the word. Pathology, like there's something wrong with these kids, but there's just so much that these kids have. Like, I'm a big person also in the way that we refer to people and we refer to things, or just our language. And so, you know, a lot of people call these youth like youth at risk, but I really do believe these are youth at promise. They have so much potential, and it's just about like kind of giving them an opportunity to identify those strengths. And so I'm really interested in eventually going into like policy work and helping create these centers and helping create these places and these opportunities. And to help them identify their barriers, to provide skill building interventions, and just build on their talents. And so that's something that I'm really looking into. So really, you can do anything. You can work for the UN if you want to, or you can work abroad as well. There's just so much, you know, as long as there's like societal problems and there's things that can improve, which there will always be, like social work will always be prominent. And so I'm really grateful for the route that I took. And I feel like right now, as like the work that I'm doing, I'm really grateful for the work that I'm doing as well, like working in a group home with adolescents who just came out of juvenile hall. So I have more time with them. I think in the juvenile justice system, like usually it was very transitional. They were there only like 3 months or sometimes a little bit more, but it was very like, okay, you go to court, then you go home, or you go to camp, or you go to placement or something. So now I'm like more involved in their treatment, more involved in their family work. And so yeah, that's sort of like what I do now. I don't know if I was talking too fast, or if there's anything specifically that maybe I can talk about. Yeah, any questions so far?
I actually have a few questions, and I'd like the students to have an opportunity, but I'll just state one of those questions for now. And did you feel like you were prepared to go to college when you went to UCSB, academically, and maybe just like your maturity? What was maybe the greatest challenge you faced while as an undergraduate student?
I think I was really excited to graduate high school. I think I was very like done with high school. So I was looking forward to it. I think what helped me, I also have a twin brother, and we both actually went together to UC Santa Barbara. So that was definitely something that I really appreciated, because even though um, we didn't hang out all the time, but I knew he was there. So I felt prepared. I think my high school education, I'm really grateful for the high school education that I had. I was part of like the honors classes and AP classes. And so the teachers there really talked about like expectations in college, and the amount of work that we would get, they said um, reflected that. So I was just really excited when I went to Santa Barbara. I think once I was in Santa Barbara, I thought that I had it all together and that I didn't need to like study as much, or like, yeah, study as much. So I remember my first quarter I remember getting a D+ in anthropology. I was like, oh my gosh. So I kind of freaked out, and it was definitely a big wake up call for me. I think I underestimated it in a way, like that class at least, and so yeah, I think it really takes a lot of, I mean, you're just independent, time management. I think in terms of my time management, it was something that I definitely had to learn, in terms of like my studying habits as well. So I mean, I had to learn how to hold myself accountable, and how to be responsible with my time, responsible with my study habits, and so it was a learning process for sure. I think my first quarter was probably the yeah no not probably not my first quarter. I think after winter break, that's when it became harder, because I was harder on myself, in a good way though. I was harder on myself, but it was definitely it was a little bit more stressful, because I knew that, okay, I can't do what I was doing in my first quarter. um, so yeah, that's my experience. Yeah. Also, it was what helped me was uh, like my dorm, and the community that I found in Santa Barbara too. I think that was very helpful. I think it's important as students like move away from home or go to school somewhere else or just start college. Like, it's important to find a group of people that are a community, a niche that you feel comfortable with, that are going to support you through your process, because it's not easy. College can be a very difficult thing for many reasons. And so it is important for you all to develop that support network to help you all, in times of stress, or just in times of need, or just like self-care. So self-care is very, very important. Um, yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that, finding a community, because obviously that's very challenging right now. And Cal Poly will continue to be virtual next semester. So perhaps are sitting there saying, okay, well, when, when can we develop that community? And so I really hope that students are taking that initiative. You can find a way to create study groups within your classes, or use tutoring. So you still have resources available even though you're virtual. So I really hope that, even though we're virtual, we can still take your advice to heart.
Yeah, definitely. Even creating groups and like game nights and just so many different things that, Zoom can do as well, that I've been learning. And so definitely self-care is so important, because you need to find ways to kind of unwind, right? It's not easy to be in front of a screen. I can only imagine what it's like to be learning, right, through Zoom every day, and then not having that social aspect that you used to have before. So it is a stressful time. And so, which is why it's important to develop, self-care skills if you haven't, or are struggling with that. It's important to take time for yourself and do things that please you, and also seek out, others, ask for help as well. So yeah.
Do we have other questions? Has anybody raised their hand, Denise?
Haven't seen any hands yet, but you can type them in the chat. You can raise your hand. You can use the little like feature on Zoom to raise hands.
You can mute.
Oh, Trey has a hand up.
All right.
Yeah, I do have a question. So we obviously all come from different backgrounds and we are working towards different majors, but what would you say are some things that we can do in order to try and help improve some of the social injustice issues that are going on right now?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think first and foremost, just being learning, just being knowledgeable about being curious. I think that's where it starts, being curious about why things are the way they are. Asking those questions, like asking those root questions, like where did this come from? Why do we see these disparities? Why do we see that, you know, the majority of our prison system is composed of Latinos and African Americans, right? Or why is it that these people, like, we don't see this group of people represented in this area? So just building on that curiosity and becoming conscious of everything that's happening around us, right? Learning about our different systems, different policies, different things that you've noticed or maybe not really noticed and are now becoming curious about. So once you develop that and are critical of all things, you know, in a good way, right? Then you're able to share that knowledge, right? To have that dialogue with other people, to kind of call people out in a kind way, right? I'm very much about like doing it in a kind way because you never know, you know, you never know what that person is going through. And so, but yeah, like having those conversations with people. And so maybe they didn't see something a certain way, you're able to offer that. So, you know, changes come with just any interaction, you know, any exchange that you have with the person can make a difference. So that's how you can start, like on a very personal level, a very interpersonal level. And then from there, like, you know, as you become more aware and maybe you want to get involved in your local politics, right? Maybe you want to get involved in like certain community groups and trying to push forth specific policies or propositions or reforms and things like that. So, I mean, it starts locally and then you can look globally, right? I think for me, that's what I learned. Like, yeah, I want to do a lot of work in San Salvador, but I knew that I also had to start locally. You know, there's such a large Salvadoran population here in California. So starting locally, thinking globally, and that's definitely a good way to start.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have a question too. Jennifer, you mentioned that like you see youth as at promise, and you know you went to UCSB as a first gen student. You've worked with youth in the juvenile hall system. What would you recommend to students who have younger siblings or maybe students who have kids? Like what steps can they be taking that you think would help them fulfill that promise that they have?
Yeah, I think I think it starts like when I think of, for example, education, like just how the way that people learn and it starts in early childhood and I think that there needs to be more focus on early childhood. So if you have like younger siblings or just, you know, siblings, like just encourage, like always speaking to them like with this how do I say it, like the world is yours type of thing. You know, like what what are you building in a way. I know as a little kid maybe they might not understand, but I know something that I learned and that I lived by is like living a life of intention, you know, because everything leads to that purpose that you have. And so really fostering that in a child, like building on their strengths, identifying their strengths, right? Identifying their strengths, helping them find their strengths, and then building on those strengths, and then and then encouraging them always, I mean, life is, it's there's going to be failures in life, but it's okay, right? Like, we're not always going to succeed in certain things, and that's okay, as long as we learn from those things. And I think kids need to learn that, because a lot of kids, at least from what I see, like, they're so jaded at such a young age with by not only parents but by their teachers, and like, they didn't feel like they were encouraged, they didn't feel like they were motivated, they didn't feel like these people that were supposed to take that role, they didn't do that. And so, that leads to self-esteem issues and like other types of like thoughts and world views that that really inhibit their growth and their success moving forward. I mean, people can change that, but I've seen that. So really speaking a word of like encouragement of like, hey, you can do it, and if things don't go well the first time, okay, keep trying, right? Like those basic problem solving skills, right? Of being able to have a plan B and develop solutions, and yeah, and going for it, like not being afraid to go for it. Um, so yeah, that's what I would encourage them to do with their younger siblings.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
You said that you worked in the ER for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Could you talk more about that experience?
Yeah, it was like an ER similar experience. So it was like more so for mental health. So it wasn't like ER, but it was kind of like right before ER. So basically it was like, let's say they were having a lot of like symptoms, like maybe a psychotic break or something. So they would go there to try to get their mental health medication first before having to go to a hospital, because hospitals, unfortunately, you go to an ER, you're there for hours and they don't really assist you as in a timely fashion. So they had these particular ER program type of agencies for mental health. So yeah, I would sit with the patient. I would kind of see like what's going on, if they have the mental capacity to do so. A lot of people that would come in, they were like experiencing severe depression. So yeah, I would just ask them questions and kind of assess what it is that they needed. Kind of like learn about their symptoms, and then they'd go on to the psychiatrist, who would, based on the evaluation that I completed, would be prescribed medication or sent to the ER, like the psych hospital.
And we have a question in the chat. How did studying abroad during college impact how you approached your academics and your career? Why do you think it's important to travel abroad?
Yeah, so so traveling abroad really opened my mind to social work abroad. I realized that there were a lot of people doing a lot of things for their communities, right? In countries such as Africa. I remember going to Ghana, and when we think of Africa, we usually have this like sense of like just severe poverty and just a lot of like negative situations that Africa has gone through or is going through, like the AIDS epidemic and whatnot. And so um, so yeah, I remember going to Ghana, and I visited an orphanage, and I was just really, and it was like very, I mean, their funds came from like either local funding sources, or from a source like from the US, or they get help from the US. But it was just really amazing to see how like local people came together to do that, right? They saw the need in their community, and they organized the resources to be able to make and build something, right, for these kids. And so it was a very beautiful thing to see. And so I saw that throughout my travels, just meeting people randomly, because you meet all kinds of people when you travel. And so it really like sparked my mind and like, well, what can I do, right? These are people that are working locally and they're making such a difference. Um, so that's really what, because I didn't think, I mean, I honestly hadn't really thought about master's in social work. Um, so it really like coming back. So I came back from that program in December and I had already like that was it. Like I extended myself to be able to do this program. And so when I came back, you know, I had already graduated. And I applied to a program which I started 6 months after that trip. Um, so yeah, it really influenced me into thinking about social work. Why do you think it is important to travel abroad? It's just not only is it an adventure in all sense of the word, but again, it really opens your mind to just how beautiful and kind the world is. I think, you know, we think a lot, you know, based on everything that's been happening and just, you know, everything we hear, like some people tend to have like this pessimistic view, and it is, you know, this darkness in the world. But even in the darkness, like there's just still so many people with so much light and so many good things happening, and I think it's very refreshing to see that. And then just learning, right? Learning about different cultures, about different foods. It's just fun. Like it's a beautiful experience. Um, and you meet all kinds of people, you learn from people, and that inspire you, that also make you curious about different things, and you know, which can help you as a person just grow in so many ways, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. So it's just a beautiful experience. And yeah, I can't wait to go on another trip.
And then we have a question. Jennifer, you say you started your master's 6 months after you're studying abroad. Was the graduate school application process challenging to do in such a short amount of time?
uh, it was really stressful. You know, when I like, so I came back in December, right? And I think the application was due in February. So it really like I had to, I think it was, I mean, yeah, because it's like you have to develop your statement of purpose, and then you have to also get like letters of rec. So trying to like get all that together, I think was a little challenging. But if you have, you know, if you know what you want, right, and if like you're invested and passionate about it, like, you know, it's gonna drive you, right? It's gonna drive you. That motivation, because thing with motivation is like you might be motivated on one day, but tomorrow I might wake up feeling a different way. So motivation kind of comes and goes, but if you have that inner drive because you have that passion and you really want to do it, like, yeah, it's going to be stressful, but yeah, it's going to get you through. And so it was a little challenging to like try to like make all of that come together in a short amount of time, but it's definitely doable.
What do you recommend to like student that might be interested in traveling abroad but may not know the language, or maybe they don't know anyone else that's going into that program? Maybe they're shy or introverted or have social anxiety, or they're extroverted. There's just so many different factors.
Right.
So with all of your travel experience, like what are some tips you would recommend or suggest to someone interested in studying abroad?
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be like a scary prospect, right? To go somewhere new, and especially if you're doing it on your own. For example, the very first time I studied abroad, I went with a friend, so we did this program together. So that was really helpful. So if you have, you know, especially if it's a little harder for you to take those steps, then then yeah, it'd be great for you to do it with somebody. But if there isn't anybody, but you really do want to do something, like, you know, there's something called exposure therapy, where like, you know you're going to do something so big, so maybe you want to start exposing yourself little by little to different situations, different experiences, so that when you do get out there, like that social anxiety is not as great, as big. Um, and yeah, because it can be like, actually, I had never traveled by myself. That was something that I was like, oh, I don't know if I should travel by myself. I'm like a girl and I'm kind of small. So I was a little skeptical about it, but I knew it was something that I really wanted to do. I knew it was something that was going to help me, that was going to help me grow. I tend to be an introvert, even though right now it seems like maybe I'm more extroverted, but I do tend to be more of an introvert, and I can be shy. So I knew that it would help me. I knew that taking that step and taking that chance would really help me grow as a person. It would expose me to different challenges, which of course, it's a challenge, but it can be a beautiful challenge too. So, and I went and I traveled by myself when I went to Europe for 6 months. Like, when I traveled abroad, like I, I traveled, yeah, I traveled on my own. I actually, the program that I did in Portugal, I stayed with the home family. So that was also helpful too. Because there was somebody there, like I knew, like even though I don't know these people, like they're there to support me as well, to help me. And yeah, it was a beautiful experience. Like I was able to learn from that family. I was able to be there with them, and yeah, I got to explore so many places on my own as well. Like that traveling experience, solo traveling experience is so, I recommend it for everyone. It could be scary at first, but it's definitely, you're not going to regret it. So yeah.
Well, we have a couple of minutes left. We have just a few more, like 2 more minutes. Does anyone have any last like burning questions for Jennifer? Well, thank you so much, Jennifer, for sharing your story and your experiences with us, both in your like college experiences and also your life as a therapist and traveling. We really appreciate it. I know a lot of our students are interested in entering social work and doing studying abroad. So talking to someone who's done it is helpful in seeing how possible it is and like what they wish, like what they could learn from someone that's already been through that and is on the other end of it.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. And if there's anyone who has like any questions, like Denise, please feel free to give them my information. They can contact me and ask me questions, and I'd love to like hear from them and yeah, be helpful however way I can. So thank you, everyone.
So if y'all can join me in giving in your reactions like a thumbs up or a clap to Jennifer for having her join us today in between her workday. Thank you. And then we also want to thank you, RAMP participants, for joining us today during U Hour. I know some of you may have classes coming up, so we don't want to keep you too long. But if you have any questions, email ramp@cpp.edu, and we can definitely follow up with that and get you answers. And we have people thanking you in the chat, Jennifer.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, with that, have a great rest of your day, and we hope to talk to you all soon.
Thank you for your time, Jennifer.
Thank you. Take care. Have a great day.
So much.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.